Alright guys, we're back, and in the first video we talked about texturing and why I would like to use mudbox. We also talked about how you can prepare your mesh for going into mudbox, and when you're in mudbox what we're going to learn further on. So this video is basically going to be importing and projecting the textures and painting the textures. Now I'm not going to show the whole process that I did on. I'll not make a finished texture, but I'm just going to introduce the subjects so you can kind of work with it on your own, because it's there's a lot of repetition, and repetition is good because you learn a lot from it, but it's not necessary for me to show you all the repetition. So my computer is acting, but anyways, I will go up here, and as we said up in the last video, we are now able to export selected to mudbox. So let me try and hit that. Go away. And it just has to load for a little bit. Well, my computer is really slow at the moment. Alright, so not ready. Okay, here we go. So it's basically the same model, and if you go to the UV space, you can see we still have the UVs laid perfectly out. And yeah, so what we're going to do now is we're going to use a stencil in here, and we're going to use a custom stencil because I have some really nice images. So, oh yeah, some of these pictures of the girl where she's naked. We can't have that, but I believe I can remember what they're called. So, yes, this is one of them. So I would like to take a brief time to talk about why this picture is good. And this picture is what we're going to use a little part of it for the texture. And this picture is good because it doesn't really have shadows. You can see it's all very plain, and it's very overall lighting. And this is very good for texturing because this means that you don't have to beware of the dark shadows or something like that. You can just paint this on, and you can basically use that as the texture. And I believe it's this one. Yes. And this is really good. I think this is really good for texturing because you kind of have a 3D angle, so it's easier to kind of fit it. And if you only have a front and a side view, it can be hard to fit it all in. So we're also going to use that a lot. Or I used it a lot. I'm not sure if we're going to see it in this. So yes. God damn it, I'm good at this. So this is the last one, and we're maybe going to use that as well. But you can see what I meant about the hard shadows is if we zoom in, you can see it kind of has a lot of shadows in here, and then can be a pretty big pain in the ass to work around. So basically this is an image browser that you can use in mudbox. I forgot to tell you about that. I went to the folder where I have the images, and these images will be shown, but another thing you can do is just to use these tools up here, and it will automatically set it as a stencil, for example, or a stamp, or a projection, or not a projection, image plane. So we're going to use a stencil, so I'm just going to press this little button, and when I then go into the 3D view, you can see I have it as a background. And over here you can see the navigation. So if I hold S and middle mouse button, I can drag it around. Left is rotation, and right is scale. If I press Q, I will hide it. So my computer is acting up because it is a really big picture. So that's why it probably takes a lot of RAM, but not that much actually. So you can see, you can already get the idea that you want to try and fit this stencil on top of your model. So I know the proportions doesn't really fit. I changed the proportion. Yeah, I changed the proportion. Doesn't really matter why. I just did because I felt it looked better. Yeah, doesn't matter. Anyway, you can see if you go to the paint down here, you have different tools, and I'm going to use the projection. So I just selected the projection. We're not going to use a stamp, and we need to create a new layer. So let's create one. And when you're creating a new layer, you get these options. You can name it. So let's name it diffuse, because that's the thing we're going to make. And in here you can select the size, and you might think maybe a 2K, maybe not. But if you take a 4K, you can always scale it down. So why not? I mean, it's cool enough for me. And in the channel, you can save as different files. It's up to you. But be aware, if you choose OpenEXR, Photoshop can show it correctly. So if you want to tweak it in Photoshop, you should probably not choose OpenEXR. So I'm just gonna select TIFF, and in these channels you can actually select what you're going to work on. So you can work on the diffuse, specular, gloss, incandescence, bump, normal map, reflection mask. So this is very good. I often use it a lot to paint specular as well, but for this one I'm only going to focus on the diffuse. But you can go into the other things as well. Specular is only a black and white map, so it's really easy to paint with. But not to get too complicated in this video, and you can experience later on if you want. We're going to select diffuse, and I'm going to press OK. So you can see I have mirroring on right now. If you don't have that, you can select it over here, and you can select which axis you want, and you can also use tangent. Tangent is good if you have an asymmetrical mesh, but I don't have that, so I don't have to think about that now. I suggest that you have a symmetrical, yeah, that's called symmetrical mesh as well, just to make your life easier. So I'm just gonna try to fit it, and then I'm gonna paint, and you can see it's pretty damn easy. So nose doesn't really fit that well. The only problem with having no shadows or anything is kind of hard to see where the particular form is. So I'm just painting my day away. Sorry guys, but you can see it goes really fast. So one thing that can confuse a bit is how the shading is done, and you can see the shading is annoying in some way. So in order to avoid that, you can go to display and use flat lighting. This means that no lighting is shown, and you can see there are some mistakes already in the projections. So that's really a nice way to kind of work when you're working with textures, because you see how the colors would be in Photoshop. If you use non-flat lighting, it will be really hard to see, and you will have kind of a hard time color picking. So what I would like to show now is actually the ear. So let me select this one and set it as a stencil, because the ear has such a complex shape that it will probably be really hard to catch the shape within the real model and kind of project it in the real way. So I'm going to try and project it, but I will probably fail. But I'll do it anyway. And as you already know, or kind of can see, it looks awful. But it's okay, because I have an idea. Oh, it's actually not an idea, it's a thing. I have a thing. So anyways, you can see that it doesn't really fit, and it's kind of hard to make it fit. and that's a problem, because if you press W or W, not V, W, you can get the wireframe on, and that really helps a lot. So one thing you can do with an ear like this, if you're trying to use projections, is that you can go in and paint. So mudbox works in this way that you have your tools down here, and if you press 1 on the keyboard, if you press 1, it selects the paintbrush. So let's try 3, it selects the eyedropper. This is pretty cool, because then you can work more fast and you can go between the two tools without too much of a problem. So I would like to use the paintbrush, and I have some settings out here. The size, you can also reduce that by holding down B and pressing the left mouse button. But the nice thing to me is the strength. I can't pronounce that. But if it's basically like the opacity brush. So if it's at 100, it will paint with 100, and that's not what we want. So I'm just going to select this color, and I'm going to select this to 10, because I don't know why, but it seems like whatever I choose besides 10, it kind of makes it weird. And this means that I can just color pick and paint. So that was basically why I took and projected the things of the map onto, because then I could color swap. And we already have a lot of detail in the ear, so we don't need all this detail. And if we do, we can try to get it in the same way by just using a texture or something on top of it in the end. So that was basically what I did with the ear in the other model. I don't really have that much time to go into it right now, but I hope you get the idea. Yeah. So you can see it can be kind of hard to paint it, and it can also be kind of hard to fit the side and the front, and the front view. So that's why it's really nice to have the 3/4 view as well, this view. So let me just try and show you what I mean. You get a whole new angle on this, and you can kind of fit it in the way you want. So I will definitely recommend you having these three pictures. These reference pictures was from 3D.sk. They provided them for me so I could use them in this tutorial, and you can download them as well for free on polyface.com. Let me think. Actually, exporting it's not that hard, so yeah, I'm just gonna show it in here. You can just basically, it's really easy. You select one layer, and then you can export it, and you can export channel to PSD. So it's really that simple. Another thing, a really quick tip, is that you can use other layers as well, like almost like in Photoshop. So you can make a shadow. And this layer, you can see you have a tab up here, and you can actually use multiply, add, screen, and overlay. So let's try multiply, and I'm just going to select a really dark color. And I would like to try and paint. So you can see it keeps the things underneath, and it just adds a dark color to it. So she's becoming a black person, but you can see the point of it. So yeah, that wraps up the tutorial, and that was basically it. So I hope you enjoyed it. I would love to hear if you have some tips or tricks in some way that you use when you're painting textures, because this is not a field that I spent that much time in. But I mean, I can texture, but it's not my main thing. So I would love to have some feedback and hear what you guys think about it. And until that, see you next time.